Hello. Hello, people. Oh, streaming red angry at me. Why are you angry at me, OBS? Don't be mad. All right, I think we're good. Had a little panic there for a second. I think I actually need to update OBS, so it could be my fault. Beautiful, beautiful dog. Hello, beautiful girl. Hi. Hi, baby. Hi. Hello. Let me take this off for you real quick. Okay, there we go. Hi, good girl. So we don't jingle so loud next to the microphone. Hi, baby. Hi, good girl. Yeah, good girl. Yeah, good girl. All right, free feet. The opening, I guess. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. What is going on? How is everyone? So glad you all could make it. And I feel like, I don't know, I like my look today. I don't normally like how I look when I live stream. I'm always like, I look like garbage. But I finally have like nice, like freshly dyed hair today, and it feels so much better. I've been having to use this special shampoo. It's a long story. I have to use a special shampoo, and I avoid using it because it strips all of the color out of my hair. Like normally I can dye my hair like every 2 months, and now it starts like showing brown after like maybe like 3 weeks. I don't like it. I do not like it in the slightest, but we live, we learn. Popcorn in a movie, I mean, hey, why not have both? It's Friday night. Ooh, flatbread pizza. Everyone's like on the snack thing. I had my current addiction, which is buffalo soy curls and vegan ranch. I really shouldn't eat it because I'm technically allergic to soy, but I do it anyways, and I suffer the consequences because I am unable to help myself. Fresh hair dye really does make all the difference. This is honestly the main reason why I've never had colored hair, is because one, really difficult to lift this many consecutive years of black out of hair, and also because the maintenance for it, I don't think I would survive, frankly. I would not be able to keep up, and it would drive me nuts. So I'd rather just keep it easy peasy. At some point, I'll probably do purple or red in my hair. I'm not really into any of the other colors like pink or green or anything, but maybe blue or purple I might do at some point. Sweet chili Doritos. Dang. Cheese enchiladas. Everyone, listen, I love it. I'm glad everyone's taking care of themselves and their nutrition. Have a little snack. Gotta have water, always. Always gotta have water. I don't know what I'm gonna have for dinner, honestly. I just kind of like slammed back a protein bar and some buffalo soy curls and was like, we're good. Ooh, taco sounds awesome. Okay, all right. We are getting into it. As much as I like talking about cheese enchiladas and dinner plans, which I'm all for. I love just chilling and vibing with you all. First of all, please observe my adorable dog. Her name is Bandita, or Bandit. I try to actually say her legal dog name because she gets very activated when I say it. So I call her a bunch of nicknames usually on stream to keep her nice and calm and chill. And she is currently giving us a beautiful gift of her adorable. I get to see this face every day, and it brings me so much joy. And I hope that it brings you all joy too in your day. So this is not just a dog live stream, that's currently a bonus. It is also an interactive Q&A, which we have every week here thanks to y'all's support on Patreon. And basically we talk about whatever. I put titles together with some topic ideas, but we very rarely stay on just those topics. It's whatever you want to talk about. You don't have to stay on topic with your questions. It could be about kink, BDSM, polyamory, open relationships, dating, asexuality, queerness, pride, life stuff, anime, dinner plans, I guess, too. Whatever it is y'all want to talk about, ask a question. The main thing to know is that I answer questions in the order they come in. So I always recommend being here early, asking your questions as soon as possible, because if I don't get to it, I don't get to it. And if you want to make sure I do answer your question regardless of what time during the stream you are here, number one way to do that is, I'm looking at my dog and she distracts me with her cuteness. Number one way to do that is by using a super chat or by going to Streamlabs. A link to that will be below. I'll start pinning a comment with it, which I haven't done before, but that might make it easier for people just to know where it is. And other than that, just kind of some general guidelines. Stay respectful. Please don't spam in the chat. And by spam, I'm going to just be very clear about that. I mean asking the same question like over and over and over again in a very short time frame. If it's been like an hour, feel free to re-ask it, because sometimes YouTube chat is like limited in how far I can scroll back, and eventually after enough messages go through, it'll just kind of like erase like the history I can see live of like the first chunk of messages. So you can ask again after a while. I typically give people like a 15-minute warning to get in their last final questions, but primarily I go through super chats. Other than that, I don't give like mental health advice. I don't give medical advice. So if you want to know about like if your bruise is infected or how to deal with BPD, I'm not qualified to answer those questions, because I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl living in the world, and I'm not a medical professional in any regard, and just trying to do my best out here and not steer anyone in the wrong direction. I can steer you towards where to find providers for certain things, and I feel like I actually have a really good system down for finding like kink-aware therapists, and like medical professionals a little bit more difficult, but definitely like kinky therapists and mental health people I've had a lot of success at finding for folks, and even some kinky folk that I know are in the community, because on their website they have a picture of them in what I know to both be an art gallery and also a kink space. So it's fine, it's whatever. Anyways, don't give advice about that, but otherwise it's kind of like whatever, open to chatting about whatever. I will decide if something is like too personal. I might just choose to skip it over. And I meant to update the live stream FAQ and like rules before this stream, but I ran out of time this week because I've just been every week YouTube gets more weird with its regulations over what gets demonetized and age restricted. So had a lot of lost time to that this week. But I would like to just say, I think from this point onward, unless it's something really egregious, like you're, like, I don't know, you're trying to dox somebody, or you're just being really, really mean and rude in like a very direct way, like trying to get around, like using slurs and stuff, like that's like, okay, you're just gonna get banned. But from this point onward, I think I'm gonna try to use a 3-strike, or like at least like a warning policy, where if you get put in timeout 3 times and you're still doing the thing, then you're gonna get banned. But our primary thing is just gonna be putting people in timeout if they break the rules, because I know sometimes they're not clear, or you come in later, you don't hear the rules. Want to make sure everything is nice and fair and you know, clear for everyone before we start doling out any ban hammers here. But I think that's kind of it. I would love to know what y'all are thinking, what's going on in y'all's lives this week, any kinky fun plans, activities, any updates. And by the way, I don't know who's here that's like asked a question before and I've given advice, but especially if you asked a question about like a relationship or a dynamic, or like help exploring something new, I love getting follow-up stories from people. If you feel comfortable sharing about like, hey, I asked you 2 weeks ago about telling my boyfriend I wanted to do this kinky thing, and like this is what happened, like please let me know how it went. I love follow-ups, and also helps me know if like my advice actually works, because just because it works for me does not mean it works for other people, and I like having that feedback for sure. Oh my gosh, I'm in a great mood today because I realized June 1st will be the 1-year anniversary of us starting our 24/7 dynamic. That is so awesome. Congratulations. Big to-dos, honestly, right there. Like 1 year in a dynamic, that's like such a special time. Such a special time in a relationship. So beautiful. I'm surprised YouTube seems to be okay with BDSM. Listen, Stella, I get it, but also we can't let YouTube know. I'm very worried for the day when I know what'll happen. I'm not going to jinx it. I'm going to knock on wood, right? Knock on wood. there is going to be a time at some point in the future where YouTube says BDSM, kink, any word like that is demonetized, age restricted. That is just the track that YouTube is currently on. I don't really see that changing, but for now, it's somehow safe. However, the words that they're not okay with, like cuckolding or sissies, I find to be very interesting. And I kind of get cuckold because, like, for a while there, it was kind of only really being used in, like, a derogatory sense by people that were members of the far right, maybe, let's say, and it was just like one of their favorite insults. So I think YouTube like sort of squish it down for that reason. Maybe not even so much the sexual connotations, but honestly, like YouTube's reasoning for anything is just a giant black box. A giant black box. This is what my life is like, by the way, just 24/7. I have a dog staring at me and looking at me lovingly. It's such a difficult existence. And then sometimes she scratches on the carpet ineffectually and tries to make a bed, even though she has a bed directly behind her. Oh, she might actually go for the bed now that I've said that. Oh, snap. Okay. How common is a three-way committed relationship? Okay, so I am going to assume that by three-way committed relationship, you mean what I would call like an equilateral triad, maybe? So the general term for like a three-way relationship of any kind is a triad. There can be a V triad where two people are dating what's called a hinge partner, where person A is dating B and C, but B and C are not dating each other. So it's a V because it's open on the top end there because B and C aren't dating. But you can also have a closed triad or like an equilateral triad where each person has a relationship with the other. So A and B are dating, C and A are dating, and B and C are dating. So it's all the way around. So hopefully that makes sense. I would say, this is like kind of interesting to think about because I think if you break down what people want ideally versus what happens in reality, you kind of get a different answer for this. So I think in fantasy, most people that are coming from monogamy, what they're looking for initially is more of a triad, is more of a three-way relationship where we're all dating each other equally and we all love each other equally and it's all equal all the way. And it's literally just like monogamy plus one is like how some people kind of derisively refer to it, but it's very hard to actually do that in reality because it's difficult to integrate a third party into an existing relationship genuinely equally. Now it can happen if you're like organically talking about being with somebody and then you all like start to date together simultaneously as like a group, but that's very, very rare to happen. So I would say what tends to be much more common is like a V triad where it's more open, where B and C don't necessarily have a relationship even if they're both dating A. I would say most people are much more comfortable with that as a relationship model, and there are people where they have like a husband and a wife and they all live together in a triad, or two husbands or two wives, and like it's all three things. I actually think it might have been Jubilee. I kind of get Cut and Jubilee mixed up. But they have a polyamory, like it's the line one where they ask you like how much you agree on something, like do all vegans agree about blah blah blah, and they ask a question and then you have to say how much you agree or disagree with the statement. And I know on one of those episodes with the polyamory people on it, there was a three-way triad that did like three-way kissing, and like I don't know, it was kind of cringe. Like they seemed really happy, but it was also kind of cringe because I'm like, this seems a little forced and a little, I don't know, like it's cringy in the same way that I think some people find like internet like cat girls wearing like $2 Hot Topic like cat like clip-on cat ears from Halloween and like a $5 choker from like Alibaba. Like it's like that kind of cringe where I'm like, I mean, you're not bad people, it's just I want to separate myself from that maybe a little bit. So hopefully that answers your question. Well, I guess I want to say like what's more common in reality. I would say a lot of people start if they're coming from monogamy, a lot of people that have an existing monogamous relationship that they're trying to open up, the first step will be to try a triad. And sometimes that totally works out. Everyone involved loves it. Everyone has a great time. But I think in reality that tends to cause a lot of conflict because like the third person doesn't ever really feel like they have equal say in the relationships they're a part of. Like they feel like they're sort of like, you know, they're the bonus partner. They're dispensable. They're disposable. They're, you know, they're not really being treated as a whole person so much as like a fulfillment thing for like the existing relationship. So a lot of people, you know, unicorns would typically be the word that's used for the person who's a third in the scenario. The unicorn can feel not very secure in that relationship style, not feel very fulfilled. And for some people, it totally works. I want to be honest, like just there are so many ways to do poly and open relationships. It's very difficult to make any kind of authoritative, like, this is the right way to do this thing. Because it's all very just, it's all individual and different people are going to want different things and be better at different things. And so some people being a unicorn and being that dynamic, perfectly fine. For other people, they get into it and discover, oh, this isn't really what I want and isn't working out long term. Especially when it's the kind of triad where it's like, we're all supposed to love each other equally and go on all the same dates together and have sex together and do everything together, and only ever doing anything as a group makes it very hard to have individual dynamics and like really know how you feel about each of the people involved. So for that reason, I don't think triads tend to be super common. I think what tends to be much more common is like people try that, it doesn't work, and then you have, if you have a couple that's like cohabitating or living together or was like previously monogamous, they both tend to then independently date other people outside of their partner. They could have threesomes with, like, if person A start dating person B, their existing partner, like F, may also be included in that, and then they end up all having a threesome together. But they're not all three trying to date each other and be romantic. Like, it's just sort of like, oh, sometimes we have fun together in the bedroom or do scenes together or something. But I think having more separation between the different couples or different pairings or sexual relationships, I think tends to be healthier longer term, because then, like, you get to be your whole own person, and you're going to be different with different people. And a group dynamic, as we maybe know from having dynamics with friend groups and individual friends, like the dynamic of a friend group can be very different than like an individual dynamic. And sometimes you like love hanging out with the person as an individual, and you do not want to be around them as a single individual person. So, yeah, I guess that's what I'd say about like open relationship dynamics and triads. Again, I just want to emphasize they're totally possible, totally doable. I think a lot of people feel most comfortable doing them initially because it's the most similar to standard monogamy, but I don't know if it ends up like working out maybe long term as much. Oh, I'm sorry that you're having a hard time there, Stormfelt. Hopefully we can have, yeah, some TGIF time. Yeah, definitely. Like, trying to find a good doctor or a good primary care provider or therapist or anything like that is so difficult. And sometimes you think you have a good match with somebody, and then you, like, see them for a couple of sessions, or you have, like, a certain issue comes up, and you go, oh, I actually can't talk to you about this. My bad. Yeah, it sucks. Sucks for real. What is the word that's censored? It is cuckoldry. Because I talked about stag vixen dynamics, and I was so surprised. I thought no one was going to watch that video about stag and vixen, and I had to fight YouTube so much in terms of like the language in it and it being like censored or not. And I was like, all right, no one's going to watch this. It's going to get like 1,000 views. Nobody gives a shit. And it's like been really popular. I've got lots of really good feedback about it, and I'd like to talk more about stag vixen and like cuckoldry and stuff, but I can't really do that in a standalone YouTube video. These live streams don't matter because they're like in the back end on YouTube. They're totally separate. I don't monetize these. They're kind of just their own thing, and so I don't have to worry as much about like maybe saying certain things during a live stream, but like titles, just for the sake of it appearing in somebody's sub feed, I try to be descriptive for titles, but also be mindful at the same time. And so yeah, I thought we could talk a little bit about cuckoldry, but I think what I'll probably end up doing is I am planning I've already done 2 videos for this month, so it probably won't be this month. But I think in June, I will be doing a cuckoldry video for Patreon, and I'll talk about that there, because then I can say whatever I want. Because there's so much with cuckoldry, you guys, like in terms of the history and the baggage and the bad stuff and the good stuff and sex and porn and like so many things that if I try to make a YouTube video about it, I have to be so restrained, and it would drive me nuts. So instead, I'm going to make a YouTube video about it, or I'm going to make a Patreon video about it instead of a YouTube video, and hopefully that'll work a lot better, and I can just say whatever I want, show whatever I want. I don't have to worry about copyright stuff if I show examples from something somewhere. Like if I can find like an example from a TV show of like cuckoldry, I can reference it in there, and it's like totally not a big deal because Vimeo is just like the Wild West. It's like the empty Wild West, as though no one ever lived there. And yeah, I'll probably do it on there. I don't have any firm timelines for like when I make stuff for there, because it's kind of just as like when I get really inspired and then I make a video about it, and that kind of is what it is. But that'll probably be sometime in June. I'll do that. Yeah, soon YouTube will limit the vocabulary we can use to 1,000 words. I mean, we are definitely heading in a 1984 type direction here pretty quickly with YouTube censorship. Like all the way back in the day when I started censoring captions, it's all just been downhill from there. I am not a vixen or a duckle dress. You mean a guckle dress? No, I am neither of those things. I don't know. I could kind of have fun maybe playing around with like a cupcake scenario, which also if I made a video about cuckoldry, it's going to be like all of the words, right? It's going to be what's a cuckold, what's a cuck queen, what's a cupcake, what's a cuckoldress. Like there's so many words that get used in like cuckoldry spaces that are not really widely known that I find super interesting and like fun to think about. But no, it's not really my kink at all. I'm not really into that. Like if I had a partner who was into it, I could see having fun with like a cupcake situation, but I don't really think anything else in that appeals to me. Like I'm just not really a big humiliation person in general. Like it's not really my bag, top, bottom, whatever. It's just not my thing. Like I get why people are into it. Like it totally makes sense to me. I'm much more on like the degradation, being an object side of kink, not really humiliation. Like I like being a really cool antique lamp that's like unique and fun and special, rather than like disgusting, dirty, bad lamp that's broken and wrong. Like I prefer being I'm being an object, yes, being a nice, valued, precious object, not a bad, dirty object, you know? I don't even know if that makes sense. Yes, you can say, so for the chat, like YouTube might, it seems like the word's getting through, because I'm not censoring the word in the chat, but I think you should be able to say it in a chat message. But if it gets held for review, I can also manually approve it if it gets frozen. So like feel free to, like, if you want to censor it, go for it. If you don't want to, don't censor it. Like I don't really think your comments matter that much. It's just me as a creator. I think they tend to be like, stop promoting the evil sexuality to other adults. Disgusting. This is a thing that cannot be done. They do not like that at all. Advertiser friendly has ruined so many online discussions. Yes, it is unfortunate. Like, I do sometimes daydream about being in the 90s, not just because of the fashion, but also getting to experience like the full early internet pre-censorship. Like, I was very young when YouTube was like a new thing, and so I think I've missed the boat on like, damn, what if I was like 10 years older, and then I could have gotten in real early, like before YouTube had any censorship at all, and just been making like you imagine, like, because Lacey Green back in the day, she has some videos that have millions and millions of views talking about like how to do anal sex. Like, could have been such a different time. I mean, given like YouTube wasn't monetized at that point in time, so I couldn't have really had it be my career either. And Patreon didn't exist, so I couldn't have done that either. So I don't know how I would have like made it work with like having a real job and also doing that, but I could have been like the secrets of BDSM, like at the peak of 50 Shades of Grey being a big thing. I could have made that video and had like 10 million views. And then we all would have been a much more educated public. And I think that would have been very positive for all of us. All right, so really quickly here, I'm going to try to do the thing I wanted to do at the beginning of the stream, which is linking to the Streamlabs. So let me do that real quick. Keep it short and simple there. Oh, I'm gonna have to scroll all the way to the bottom to make sure that comment gets pinned. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now people can try that out if they want to. No pressure. I will answer your question even if it's not a super chat. Just FYI, I prioritize super chats because that's just how money works. But yeah. Okay. Let's get into some questions. Oh, that's awesome. Daddy and I found a new sub who is super sweet and we really hit it off the other night. We're supposed to go get together again tomorrow. Awesome. Congratulations. Yes, definitely hype. Definitely hype. Yes, and like the stream if you want to. No pressure to like it if you don't want to. Theoretically, it could potentially help the live stream, but I have no concrete evidence about that. We are simply rain dancing for the pleasure of YouTube's amusement, and that's really it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that I don't normally wear sleeveless shirts because I've had like I don't know, I just have like I had a lot of like been struggle bussing with hormonal acne since I got the Nexplanon implant. We're gonna have when I get to being on a year on Nexplanon, we're gonna talk about all this in a lot of detail. But I've been struggling a lot with hormonal acne for the last like 6 months, and it's finally starting to clear up. And so like I finally feel like my arms are like not disgusting looking anymore. So I feel okay showing them on camera. I think that's like super shallow, but like it's real. Like I've always struggled with like body acne and stuff ever since I was a teenager, and I had it like mostly fixed for like 2 or 3 years, but for the past like 6 months it was like it was not great. It was not looking cute. So, but now it's all better. So ooh, veggie salad sounds nice. What kind of movies do you like watching? Oh, that's a good question. I feel like people would assume I may be really into horror movies, but I'm not really at all. As long as I just don't watch them. I had a lot of fun watching like the Paranormal Activity movies. I like suspenseful movies. I like thrillers. I like dramas. I love historical dramas especially. I think those are some of my favorites. I love a good historical drama. I like yeah, I don't know. I just sort of I don't like movies that have lots of really big loud explosions in them. Like super high well, not usually. I actually love the John Wick movies. I really like the John Wick movies because it's about a man defending his dog and avenging his dog and his wife, and that is true love. And Keanu Reeves is obviously just a beautiful man. So we have no choice but to stand, obviously. And beautiful in terms of looks and in terms of personality, as far as I can tell. So I do really like the John Wick movies, so they're kind of an exception. But I'm not really big into, like, I don't know, anything like body horror or, like, the Marvel movies or, like, science fiction. It's not really my thing usually. Things in space I don't normally really like. Like, if it's people getting space, like if they go in space and they die, like they like get frozen or implode or explode or whatever the movie is showing happens when you're in space, I don't like that. Don't like that. Because, like, I get really bad existential dread when I think about space. And, like, the unlimitedness of space and how unknown it all is. It just freaks me out. So I don't like that. But I do like, again, sort of more thriller movies, dramas, historical dramas especially, and specifically 90s rom-coms. Nothing modern, and if it's any newer than 2008, I don't like it. If it's any older, well, they didn't even have rom-coms really in like the 70s, so it doesn't really count. But like, sort of like there was like a sweet spot of the like Meg Ryan, You've got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, like 13 going on 30, which isn't really even a rom-com necessarily. Miss Congeniality, maybe potentially also. There was like a really sweet spot for those movies for like 10 years where I feel like they were really good. And they are like my comfort movie, have on in the background, don't worry about it vibe. Like I don't seriously watch those movies. Also, love Legally Blonde. I love Legally Blonde so much because it's a movie about women supporting each other and men are not all that. Which I love the messaging of it of like, don't judge people by their cover, women supporting women, men aren't worth it, like go your own way, girl, you can do it, you're smart. I really like the messaging in it, and obviously Reese Witherspoon is really sweet and nice as well. So those are the movies that I like, but I don't really watch movies, so maybe I don't have an educated opinion. I watch more people reviewing movies than I watch people actually watching movies. Like I watch a lot of Red Letter Media. Actually it's mostly Red Letter Media. Red Letter Media and like, I don't know, Big Joel, and who else reviews movies? Kind of those two, I guess. Like I watch a lot of both of their channels. So most of my Amanda the Jedi, I watch a little bit of as well. Not consistently, but like if a movie she's watching looks interesting, I'll watch her video about it. But that's basically how I mostly consume content. Like, and every once in a while they'll say like a movie is really good, and I'll be like, okay, I'll go watch that. I'll make time for it. You've got Mail and Miss Congeniality or Perfection. French Kiss is an awesome rom-com. I will have to look into it. Is Forgetting Sarah Marshall a rom-com? I haven't seen that one, so I don't know. I've watched Legally Blonde so many times. I think I've probably either watched Legally Blonde or Home Alone, I think the most. I'm not sure which one. If I had to tabulate in my head, I think I've probably seen Home Alone more because it's a holiday movie and it's on all the time. But Legally Blonde's definitely up there as like a regular watch. Best animated movie though is Road to El Dorado. Everyone in that movie is horny. I watched it again as an adult and I was like, holy. It's the horny animated movie for kids. Okay, like it's that one's really good. I like the dynamic in the movie. I don't know, it's a good one. I just wanted to scream at them to like just have a tryout already. Like speaking of threesomes, there you go. Perfect example. Like if you want to introduce threesomes to a partner, just show them Road to El Dorado and be like, I want to have what they have. It would work. It would work. Trust me. 100% of the time, it works every time, or whatever that is. Which I think, was that from was that movie? Anchorman? Legally Blonde the musical is better than the movie. I haven't watched the whole musical. I've seen some clips from the musical. There's one song that they do about you know the one they're doing the court scene and then they're like, straight men don't know designers. Like it's at that point in the movie, it's in the musical, and they have a whole song about is he gay? It got used for a lot of memes for a while there, so I saw that one. Oh yeah, I bet it'd be a fun little space movie. Honestly, so many options for that. You saw El Dorado in theaters? Lucky. French Kiss is Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline. I mean, Meg Ryan, she was really on top of the world there. Didn't Meg Ryan kind of disappear because she, like, got plastic surgery or something that was botched? And so, like, we really did a number on women in the 90s. We were like, you're basically perfect, but not perfect enough. And so, sorry, you can't be on TV anymore. Yeah, because she was on When Harry Met Sally, and then was in Seattle. You Got Mail, and then she was gonna be in Silence of the Lambs, but then she was like, actually, which I won't be in. And then French Kiss, right? And then she was on a hiatus, then she was like in, oh, now she like does directing, I guess. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else that had like the botched surgery and then like used to be a leading lady and then wasn't anymore. Because it happened a lot in the 90s. We really were like, We didn't know we were doing with nose jobs or implants yet, and we did a number on some people. It was really not a good time. Zoolander is a great movie. I haven't seen it in a very long time, though. I'm kind of like saving it for like a good aftercare moment. It is a very quotable movie. Kate and Leopold, another one of those I, for some reason, watched over and over again as a teen. The one I watched over and over again was The Other Boleyn Girl. Oh my gosh. The Other Boleyn Girl.
Nathaniel donated $24. And ideas with dealing with and moving past rejection? RSD is the worst, by the way. Sorry for derailing the movie conversation.
Yeah, no worries. I just... The only reason, The Other Boleyn Girl, because there's somebody in that made me realize I wasn't straight, and like it was a whole moment. We all have those moments. Not Natalie Portman. Maybe she wasn't in this movie. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, because it definitely wasn't Natalie Portman, and it wasn't Scarlett Johansson. Did they like remake that movie? Did they have somebody else in it? Because she's also in Game of Thrones. She was in there for like a couple of seasons and then she got killed off. I promise I will get to the rejection question, but I'm currently in my own... There were so many people in Game of Thrones. So many people. Natalie Dormer! Yes, queen. It was the first... Other Boleyn Girl was the first movie I ever watched that had a sex scene in it, and my mind was blown. I had never seen it. I was like, what? What's happening? What are they doing? And then I realized that I didn't care about the male lead in the movie at all. Natalie Dormer. Brilliant stuff. I do need to... Was she in... Okay, she was totally not in The Other Berlin Girl. Okay, then what did I see her in? Because it definitely was not Game of Thrones originally. She's not really been in a lot of movies, actually. Rush, Captain American, Flawless, Casanova, The Hunger Games. Oh, it was The Tudors! I got the movie mixed up with the TV show. Okay, different timeline, different events. So The Other Boleyn Girl was the first time I saw a sex scene in a movie, and then The Tudors was when I had my gay awakening. So, there you go. Not actually gay though, but you know, the moment when you realize that you feel things for people other than, you know, the thing that you were told you were supposed to feel. You just call her side boob in Game of Thrones. Whoever cares about male leads, male directors, I think, male like self-insert fantasies maybe. Because I think men care more about abs and, like, being rock hard than most women do. Most women want, like, I don't know. I shouldn't say what most women want because it's so individual. But, like, I feel like women care much more about personality and much less about if you have 5% or 7% body fat. Oh, I left my door open. I should fix that. All right, crisis averted. All right, so let's get into the question about rejection, because that's a really good question. So RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, is definitely like it's a whole own thing. Once again, not a mental health provider, not a counselor, don't have expertise in this. So that's kind of like dealing, and I would love it if you guys, because I know my audience. We have a big old neurospicy bunch out here. So if any of you all have RSD or deal with it and have tips, like please share. I love getting like crowdsourced information. It's great stuff. But I also want to just talk about a little bit what my perspective on that would be in like getting past rejection, because obviously it does really suck. So first, I want to acknowledge, I don't want to minimize anything. I want to be for real. Yes, being rejected is really hard. It's not fun. And it definitely makes you feel like, why am I not good enough? Or why don't they like me? Or what can I change about myself to make myself more likable? And it just brings up a lot of like self-doubt, a lot of really negative feelings, especially when you're really into a person and those feelings aren't reciprocated. So yes, first of all, definitely normal. It's not anything that's like wrong with you. Just being rejected is definitely like a very painful thing to experience. For me, and how I have dealt with rejection in the past, like help myself move through it, because I can only really speak for myself, is I think how have I dealt with it actually? Like, what is the actual process that I've gone through to deal with it? Because I think I've done a mix of things that I would recommend and would recommend. I think definitely leaning on friends and like a support group is a really good thing to do. Like talking to other people about it and getting reassurance that you aren't like a bad person or unlovable or anything. Just having that reassurance from friends is really important. Also, like just having a social support network and not only investing all of your time into like romantic or sexual stuff, I think is always a good thing to do. I think a lot of people really overvalue sex and romance as a thing, because I think in our society, the way that we organize it is that the only way to get validation is from romantic and sexual partners, and friendship is not really treated as an area where we can really do that, but I think it can do that. I think it should. And I think that having more of a focus maybe on like cultivating friendships and other connections outside of like, you know, the thing that causes a feeling of rejection is probably a good thing to do. And then actually like processing the rejection. A lot of like listening to music, writing down feelings, complaining about it. Usually I will spend time, like more time maybe on like a dating app or something, messaging people, or going to in-person parties or events if I have time to do that. And like they're just like trying to reconnect with people outside of just like this thing where I experienced rejection, because that helps me feel like and remind myself that I'm not like this worthless person that can't have friends and can't talk to people, and that I'll never find somebody, because like if I can go out and I can have a good conversation at a party or starting a new conversation with somebody on an app or something, like okay, there's like we're moving in a positive direction. There is some ability to be able to move forward in a positive way and to have other connections. Dealing with rejection is, especially when it's like it happens a lot and it's kind of a serial thing. Like I think a lot of the standard advice that people give for this is like self-improvement, like oh, just like learn how to dress better, or like go to the gym, or skincare or something. And I think like yeah, you can also do that. Like sometimes self-improvement can be like if you're not like prioritizing yourself enough, I think sometimes that can help. And I think that's kind of one conversation, but I don't think that what's really important is focusing on the physical aspects of like what you could be doing better and like self-improvement. I think there's space for that, but I think if we're not first processing the emotional component, like just kind of trying to paint over that with like, and then I go to the gym 5 days a week, and then I'm training for a marathon, and I'm getting fancy skincare, I'm doing this, that, and the other. Like if you're just covering it up and not dealing with the underlying feelings, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with. I care about personality and connection, and I'm a gender non-conforming. Oh, lost the end of the chat there. My understanding is that RSD is feeling those rejection feelings almost preemptively, or feeling them even when rejection hasn't actually happened. Yeah, it's like, it's a very, I mean, I can just pull in probably the dictionary definition of it just to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what even is a good source for this? Okay, I'll just like read the first one that gets highlighted, and then we can talk about it. It says rejection-sensitive dysphoria is extreme emotional sensitivity and pain triggered by the perception that a person has been rejected or criticized by important people in their life. It may also be triggered by a sense of falling short, failing to meet their own high standards or others' expectations. So it's not even that it's just like, oh, I feel kind of bad. Like, emotional pain can be felt in the same part of the brain as physical pain. So it's a very like real thing that is very painful to go through. It's not like, oh, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and feelings, just mind over matter. Like, there's actually looks like there's some good stuff about this. It is, for just for the record, people don't know what this is. It's usually associated, from my knowledge, with ADHD and autism, but I could probably other kinds of neurodivergence, I would imagine, also experience RSD or can have it be a component of their experience too, because the lines between all these things are a little bit more fuzzy than sometimes we like to imagine they are. And yeah, it can be about anticipated rejection, not just actual experience rejection, but like really, really intense anxiety or like really big negative feelings when you think you might be rejected, which obviously can then prevent you from actually taking actions. And then like seeing neutral or vague reactions as rejection or silent criticism, and then like inability to regulate emotional responses to feelings of failure and rejection. So I'm gonna recommend a book actually, because I have it with me. It's like specifically focused on this. I'll try to find a section in here that's like relevant to this. For once, I have a book next to me that I want to reference. This is called Regulating Emotion, the DBT Way. It's technically a therapist's guide. So if you're not familiar with DBT otherwise, it might not be a great fit for you. But there's a lot of work in here for like regulating emotions and like different references to things if you want to like read more. Different like kind of like how to like if we should down regulate or up regulate, because like emotional regulation, you can also have under responses to emotions, right? It's not just like heightened emotions, but like if somebody like steals your dog and you're just sort of like, it's whatever, I don't really care, like that would probably be an under response to the emotion. So it's also about like up regulation. And I know that there's a section in here that I'm pretty sure is about this. I'm trying to find. Because sort of, I mean, I don't know, it depends on, there's sort of like anger, there's disgust, there's sadness, there's a lot of guilt maybe even, or shame, envy and jealousy, and then like secondary emotions, which is like feeling angry about feeling sad, like things are all layered together. Anyways, I guess I could just look and see if there's something in here about jealousy, which maybe there's not actually, because jealousy is not the word I'm looking for. Like fear or like anxiety around rejection, there's just resistance to change. That's not really in here. But in general, I do recommend something like this if you want help with regulating emotions and feelings and knowing more about how they work, because you can always use more tips. And somebody made the CBT joke. I knew it was gonna happen. No, I actually don't really know a lot about CBT. It's not really like a modality that I'm like super into. Yeah, she definitely is just like, now she's very far away from the camera, so I'm just gonna turn it off for now until she comes back over. Because she's currently like, I can't move my camera, the cord isn't long enough to move over to where she's at. Yeah. For a long time it physically hurt. Like I couldn't understand how some people asked people out all the time because it wasn't that super painful. Yeah, I mean it is super painful. Like, I mean, just like for you obviously personally, but then like, I mean, everyone experiences it differently. Like, some people, they just, like, it's water off a duck's back, and they're just, like, whatever. Honestly, a lot of people that have that reaction, though, where they kind of under-respond to it, I think tend to be more, like, avoidant attachment. They tend to be like, well, I'm gonna reject you first, so I rejected you anyways first, and so even though you technically broke up with me first or said no, I already was actively rejecting you in my brain anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Like, sometimes people can be super avoidant, and so like that's their technique for dealing with rejection, is they've already pre-rejected everyone else first, and so therefore they actually hurt you initially, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's wild. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Personally, RSD makes me feel physically nauseous. I have ADHD, autism, OCD combo. I mean, Props to you, because that's a lot. Hopefully you found some good help with that, because that's like finding a specialist that gets all of that stuff simultaneously. I imagine is no mean feat. That makes it feel so bad, even though I haven't actually been rejected or criticized in someone else's eyes. Yeah, a lot of people's initial response would be like, "Well, what's the problem? I'm not criticizing you. I'm not rejecting you." But like, it feels very real. Like, even if it's not actually happening, like, it feels very real. And I sort of experienced a degree of this sometimes with like criticism, especially with like personal people in my life. Like, I'm very sensitive to feeling like I'm getting like criticized for small things that I feel like shouldn't really matter. That I can be very sensitive to, which is why I have like some, which is why I have this, because feelings are hard. Is it like Ralph and Lisa in The Simpsons? You can actually pinpoint the exact second his heart rips in half. I mean, maybe. I haven't watched that episode, so I don't know for sure. Mm-hmm. It is for me. For others, it may feel different. Things are mentally very a lot person to person. Yeah, absolutely. It's mostly an overreaction to perceived rejection or criticism. Yeah, I don't actually know. Yeah, both DBT and CPD do help. I don't have a therapist, and it's really, really difficult to find one right now. But yes, all those things are really good. I mean, if like I sort of knowing what I know about you, I think you totally have the skill set to like, especially with DBT. If you want to do something like that, I'll just say in general, there's lots of group based like classes you can take that are online, that are just like open enrollment, or they do like rolling enrollment every like 4 or 6 months. And you can just join those, and they're focused on different like usually portions of like the general like framework of DBT. And those can be really good, and they tend to be pretty affordable. Like, at least where I live, I think therapists are like 150 to like 250, maybe even $300 an hour for an individual 50-minute session, whereas like a week, like each week of group, or like a month of weekly group therapy is like $70. So like it can be a lot more affordable to do group therapy and like in like a skills-based setting, because DBT mostly is from what I know at least, like a group thing, or like an inpatient thing. And it also is sometimes used in individual therapy, but not as commonly. But if you feel like being self-directed, like a book like this, or just like the general like DBT workbook, I actually have so many DBT things on this desk because I just love it so much. Have like DBT cards, and they're sorted by color based on what they are trying to teach you, which is, let's see, there is sort of distress tolerance and emotional regulation. I feel like are kind of generally the bag. So you're kind of trying to separate these out so I can like show you guys. I'm just like trying to encourage all of you to get a therapist, honestly. I'm a big believer in mental health, and a lot of people say like it's difficult to find like a kink-aware therapist, or like a therapist that works with like whatever thing that I have going on, or they like I'm queer or whatever. Like, it can be difficult to find the right person. But like there are lots of people out there, especially like people that work in like sex therapy or in certain population groups that are very skilled. There are like, I looked the other day just to see, and there's like 30 therapists in Washington and Oregon that are like, they're personally like non-binary, and like I get all different genders of people that practice therapy. So like, find somebody who matches your identity in your life, and you're gonna have much better success. But it is possible. So I wanted to see if there's like, if I can quickly, instead of trying to pull up something on a screen, I can like show you the thing I'm thinking of. Because I'm imagining if it's like a really painful thing. Because if it's like a really painful in the moment, I'm feeling really, really bad about this. This is when I would go more for like the distress tolerance skills, which are like the purple ones in the deck. So that would be stuff like, that would be like, there's like improve in the moment, which is when in a crisis you have a choice between sinking into your distress or investing in behaviors that might improve how you feel in spite of everything, especially during tough times. Strive to improve in the moment. So that would be, like imagery, would be finding meaning, Prayer, which is like is a little bit of a controversial one. But this can also be like saying a mantra. That it doesn't have to be a religious thing. It could also just be like saying a mantra or saying you're thankful for something. It doesn't like have to be like a little religious thing. And then like relaxation, one thing or moment at a time, and encouragement. Oh, I feel like I missed one. Where's the V? And then vacation, which is like taking a vacation in your mind. So, and then there's like self-soothing skills. There's all kinds of stuff in here. And then you get into like more complicated stuff like radical acceptance and like bridge burning, and then like urge surfing and like grounding and stuff. So it gets pretty detailed, but there's lots of like good skills in here. And if you're having like a really, really big crisis, there's skills you can use for that too, for like really coming down from like super heightened emotions. People are usually familiar with like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is like you're pointing out like 5 things you can see and 4 things that you can touch and 3 things that you can smell or whatever. Like I forget the order of which sense is supposed to be which number, but like generally you are embodying your senses. You're getting in touch with what your body's like experiencing, which can feel bad, especially like if you have bodily trauma or things or like medical things that might not be super comfortable for you to do. You can also look up stuff about like the mammalian dive response and using that. Again, not a therapist, not trying to do anything that I think is completely out of turn. There's just lots of skills for regulation when you're experiencing those really, really heightened emotions. And the thing I always try to keep in mind if I'm experiencing really heightened emotions is like emotions, like especially really intense negative emotions, thrive on our cognitive recognition of them. They thrive on us paying attention to them and like reinforcing that they are something that we need to be like actively worrying about. So if I can distract myself for long enough or calm myself down bodily and get my brain to sync with what my body is signaling, because that's the point of doing these skills, is either you're mentally soothing so your body can calm down, or you're calming your body so your brain will follow with what your body is signaling to do next. But if I can I know that if I can get myself away from being exactly in this feeling right now in the moment for like 15 seconds, half a minute, like 30 seconds, I know that I can get through whatever the worst part of the feeling is, and then I'll start to feel better. So that's why I like try to remind myself I can get through like the worst part of it. But if what you're feeling is more like an ongoing, intense, like I'm thinking about it a lot, I'm ruminating on it, or it comes up a lot, or it's like kind of passively in the background in my head as a thought, but I'm not like actively being in that feeling in the moment, that's a little bit trickier to work with. Just because like your body can like feel regulated, but your brain's kind of like racing and like ruminating on stuff. But there's lots of like good stuff for regulating emotions and things too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can like show you real quick. So like the building up like positive experience. I mean, the main thing that I tend to like go to for people is like acting opposite of emotion and like checking the facts, because those are like really, really good core skills. Which is like basically is a very, very short summary of like, okay, you know that you're being rejected, and like your level of feeling about being rejected is like a 10 out of 10. It's complete maximum. Okay, well, does it really fit with like checking the facts? Does that match like what we want to be feeling? Is that productive to feel at level? Probably not. And so we want to downregulate and like make that feeling less intense. So then we try to do, when we know that our emotions don't fit the facts and we want to change them, we do the opposite action. So if we're feeling rejected and we're feeling afraid of being rejected, we have to go towards the thing that makes us afraid and keep doing it until it stops feeling so scary. So basically, what you're doing is exposure therapy to your emotions. And that can be really scary. It's really hard. So this is why we do this with therapists and not always self-directed. Or doing it in a skills group where you get support from peers is really, really good. So yeah, I guess that's not really like necessarily great like in the moment advice for like this is how you deal with feelings. But I just try, like, I guess sort of when I'm feeling rejection is like I try to like create positive experiences, do something positive for myself. I try to distract myself temporarily from the emotion, not wallow in it, not like spend the whole evening crying in my room, eating ice cream, listening to albums back to back to back. Like I tried to do something quick, like maybe I scream really loudly into my pillow really quickly. Maybe I listen to one really sad song and listen to it. Like I try to do something really quickly to get myself out of that feeling and like fully embody whatever I'm doing in that moment. If that's playing Sudoku or a card game or something on my phone or reading a book or listening to music. I just try to get really into whatever that is, fully distract myself. And hopefully that helps kind of ease that feeling enough to kind of unstick from it a little bit and then be able to deal with it in like a more rational way outside of just like being fully embroiled in it, you know? Yeah. I cannot imagine you would ever be rejected. Listen, it happens. Being asexual is a big problem for a lot of people, and also a lot of people do not like respecting sexual boundaries, even when they know that about you. So, yeah, there's a lot of rejection back and forth, or like sometimes people, honestly, a lot of it is like people deciding they don't really want to be poly, or deciding they want to be poly but not with me, and they're like, oh, actually, I'm polysaturated at 4, so I actually can't see you. We can't actually date. Or somebody, I don't know. It's a lot of like weird stuff that people do. Rejection happens to everyone. Yes, even me, the illustrious YouTuber. It does happen. It is a thing. Oh, shoot. I did want to mention this at the beginning of the stream, but now it's way too late. I know that Apple is having issues with YouTube streams and videos on the Apple app. Like if you're on the YouTube app on an Apple device, it apparently crashes a lot. It has a lot of issues right now. So if you can somehow hear me and that's you, it's good to be on a desktop or on an Android device if you can. Because I think Apple is just, they're having some issues. Okay, I'm going to say that that's kind of like the answer to that question for right now. All right, let us get into some more questions. Okay, everyone thinks Bendita is cute. Too bad she has decided to nap very far away. I actually think it's, maybe if I move the fan, she'll follow where I have the fan. Ooh, but then it's going to blow on my face. Whatever, I'll deal with it. Chocolate squares. I do like chocolate. I think we need a code word for cuckolding and permutations of that word. Yeah, I was asking people about that the other night, and I think, what was it we settled on? Cook holding, maybe? Like cook holding. Because it sounds really close, but neither one of those words have like, or cup holding, right? We had cup holding. I think that's a good one. I think that's really the one to go with, because that is like a cup holder is like already a full word by itself. The other day I was watching the interviews you did at the end of last year, and you mentioned there was going to be one with Raven and Josh, but I couldn't find it. What happened? I have a ton. I have like 10 interviews that I need to edit, and Josh and Raven's is one of them. I have so many interviews with people that I haven't done yet, and I'm gonna get them done. It's like my to-do, like for next month. I'm gonna try and get them all done and get them scheduled and like out there because they need to be out there. So I do have them. It is a thing. That interview in particular, they have very bad internet. So we had to like record 3 separate things. It was a whole mess. So that one in particular like took a long time to actually like edit and like make happen. But yeah, it is coming. It is happening soon. Don't worry. It's just I have so many interviews I haven't edited yet because they take so long. They take so long to edit, even though it's not even like a really heavy editing process. Just like sitting and listening to like an hour, 2-hour long conversation takes a long time. Ooh, okay. Hi Evie, I'm in a new dynamic with my partner and her experience is still new at being a dominant. How can I encourage her to feel more confident about building a strong relationship with an MS dynamic? Okay, so we're sort of MS dynamic, new partner, new to kink. I mean, I guess sort of my like initial instinctual response is like maybe MS is a little bit like jumping off the deep end for somebody who's brand new to DS and like, okay, well, are they new to kink in general? Just new dynamic with my partner. Her experience is still new at being dominant. Confident with being a strong relationship with a dynamic. I mean, I guess, yeah, I think my initial take is like, okay, well, maybe just doing full on MS is maybe a little bit much for somebody who's new to being a dominant, but maybe that's like, maybe it's that way or no way, in which case, you know, that's okay. How can you encourage somebody to be more confident? I think this is a really common question. I think one, you have to identify why they're not confident. Because I think there's a couple reasons why dominants don't feel confident. I think a lot of times it's based on like feeling guilt or shame about being a dominant. Like they have hang-ups about like, I'm doing something wrong, I'm doing something bad. A lot of like shoulds, right? Like I shouldn't hurt my partner. I shouldn't enjoy this. It makes me a bad person. I shouldn't want to be in control because that means I'm a narcissist. Like they might have a lot of baggage over like the guilt, shame, like emotional part of being a dominant that feels bad to them. And so I think it's worth maybe talking with them about like, is that part of their emotional experience? I should just talk about all this. Like try to figure out what it is. And then based on that, like take whatever specific advice I give in mind with that. I think also one of the reasons people aren't confident is because they don't have a skill set yet, right? They're still learning about flogging or caning or dirty talk or humiliation, and they don't really know a whole lot yet, and so they don't feel super confident yet like using that in a power exchange way or during a scene. And the main way that you deal with that is you get practice, you take classes, you read books, you listen to podcasts, you do all that stuff. You get as much information as you can about the thing that you don't feel confident in. You practice it on yourself, you practice it on a dummy, on a pillow, you go to a practice lab, you go to a newbie night at a dungeon and just like practice on an empty bench or a San Andreas cross. Like you practice, and then at some point you practice so much, you're at the edge of what you can possibly do without actually doing it to a person, and then you have to have a little bit of bravery. You just have to be willing to take that next step. And I think you can help be a good partner to somebody that wants to be more confident when they're lacking a skill set by being very, very, very open and very kind about like, I want to try this with you. I am so open. I know that you're still learning. I love that you're learning. Like, let's experiment. Just be very, very, very clear about like not having expectations about them being the perfect dom yet, or that they're going to get everything right. Like just really reassure them that it is practice, that you know it's practice, and this is part of building up a relationship, that you want to do that, and just like lots of praise, lots of encouragement. I mean, like ultimately they are the dom, so I guess if they don't want to do that and don't want to practice on you first, like they don't have to. But I think it's a really good thing to do, is just like be very positive and like don't try to control them with it. Like don't like force their hand on taking classes or something. Like they have to be, because they're the dom, they have to be some level of self-directed if you want to make this MS relationship work. And so they should be able, if they understand the importance of this to you and their importance for being a dominant, they should be able to be a little bit of a self-starter when it comes to the education side of things. I also want to say, if you're dealing more with the guilt and shame part of that kind of goes back to what we just talked about with, again, the DBT skills, and realizing that the guilt and shame you feel about this is not really fitting. Like there's no reason to feel guilt or shame because you were acting inside of your values. You were doing things consensually with a partner that is informed and wants this, and you are doing it like, again, educated, consensual way. And so the guilt and the shame, the way to get through that is by doing the thing that makes you feel guilt and shame, and just doing it in small ways first, okay? I'm not saying we do a 3-hour-long humiliation blood play scene. So I don't even know how those two would go together, but just the emotional extreme and the physical extreme together at the same time. Like, you don't have to go off the deep end and do something really intense, but just start really small, doing things that provoke that feeling of guilt and shame. Do it a little bit, realize the world doesn't end, and then you can do it a little bit more every time. You do a little more. As you build up that confidence, because that's what it is, right? Because when you can do something you think you can't do successfully, That builds confidence. That's how we're building confidence with practice and with education and with doing smaller scenes. Like, and this actually honestly goes both for like the guilt shame thing and also for the skill set thing. Like starting off doing really, really small scenes. Like something that is impossible to fail at, okay? We are doing the equivalent of when you have a fear of heights, you look at a picture of a mountain on Google Images. Like, as far removed as possible from any level of failure, but like still provokes that feeling of like, I feel unconfident, I feel maybe guilt or shame or anything else like that, like just nervousness. And we're doing that. So that would be like, literally have them spank you for like a swat, 3 swats. Use a paddle on you for 1 stroke. Call you a good girl and that's it. Like, or doing that really, really short, just seeing how it feels and then be like, yes, that was amazing. I loved you. Just did such a good job. Lots of praise, lots of positive reinforcement. Just letting them know they're on the right path. They're doing the right thing. And that will definitely count for a lot. So I really like that. The incremental improvement, so important. It can be very difficult because you can want to rush to the end of doing the big thing and feel like, again, like you should be able to just do it. You should be able, again, shoulds, all in air quotes here, you should just know what you're doing. Just reinforce to them that you know what the reality is, which is that being a dominant can be something that we naturally gravitate towards, but even when we gravitate towards it, it is a skill set that we build on. It is something that we build a little bit over time. We get better and better at, we do more and more of it, and then suddenly you go from doing like 3 swats with a paddle to now you're doing 10 swats. Now you're doing a 20-minute long scene. Now you're doing an hour-long scene. And before you know it, you've just slipped into doing a regular scene and it wasn't even a big deal because you were just like suddenly felt very natural and you knew what you were doing. Because also, part of the reason for why this builds up confidence is because, I'm just going to remove this thing because it's blowing the fucking hair in my face and I hate it. Anyways, like also why this works is when you're doing really, really, really small scenes, you can do feedback right away and let them know how awesome it was, how much you liked it, in terms of the placement, in terms of like, yeah, I liked it more when you were this high or this low or whatever. Like you get that practice also at feedback and then accepting feedback. And so if you're just leaping into doing 2-hour-long scenes, that might be a lot of feedback. Like, how did you dress? How did the room smell? What was the room temperature? What did you do? Where did you hit? What was your voice like? Like, there's so many elements in there where, like, getting feedback from that is, like, your first step. That's overwhelming. That might make you feel rejected. That might make you feel like you're not ever going to be a very good dom. But where you can do things really small and in a very, like, easy, simple way. And actually, I'm going to be doing a review for this book on Patreon. The book is called, and I just finished reading it yesterday, it's called Hot and Unbothered, and I got this, as you can tell, at, Powell City Books. I got this used, and it is written by a sex therapist. Is she a sexologist? No, she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. So, she is a sex therapist, but not a sexologist. And there is a skill that she talks about doing in this that's basically this exact thing, but it's like a very concrete, like, this is how you build on this thing, like, step by step deal. There's a lot of stuff in this book. I'm just trying to find it really, really quickly because I thought it was really useful. It may have actually been more towards the beginning of the book, but maybe not. I feel like it was in the middle, late part of the book. Because definitely, I feel like it was in the section about, like boundaries? I don't know. It's like a yes, no, maybe list in here. The brain-body connection. Okay, it's driving me nuts that I can't find this. No, this is about problems. Okay, wait. No, this is about apologizing and boundary mistakes. Oh, no, here we go. Okay, I didn't bookmark this for some reason. Okay, so I don't know how to, like, if I can, like, get this information to you. But it's in this part of the book. And it's all about different steps that you can take for, like, it's about bonding and trust repair, but really what it is, it's about setting up boundaries, setting a timer, doing something for a very short period of time, and then, like, doing different levels of feedback after each time so you can build up confidence, establishing a boundary, receiving a boundary, doing the thing that you're doing together, and it just, like, builds up skill in, like, all three of those things. So actually, I'm gonna bookmark this right now because I think I just ran out of sticky notes at some point. Honestly, I think that was my main issue here, but I got a bookmark now, so I won't lose it again. But this has some good tips in there. This is more of like a more vanilla sex book thing. It's not really like, there's some stuff about kink in here. It's like applicable to kink, but it's not about kink. But yeah, in terms of other things that can build confidence and, like, help your partner be more confident, building a strong MS relationship. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would do, or, like, any main things that kind of keep people from being confident about being a dominant person. I mean, I would assume that they know that that's what you want. I think that's the other main roadblock that people have, is they're not sure what their partner wants. And so they don't know for sure if what they're doing is okay or not. Like, they're worried about transgressing, right? I think that's the word. I don't know why. Anyways, that's the word. We're sticking to it. If your partner is not, like, for sure in the know about where your boundaries are, especially in an MS dynamic, I would definitely start with that. I like a yes, no, maybe checklist, or just giving her a written list of, like, what you want to do, what you will do, what you don't want to do. That's called, like, a want, will, won't list, I think is what that one's called. Or just kind of having a verbal conversation about, like, this is why I want to be in this dynamic. This is what I would get out of it. This is what I'm emotionally hoping to experience. This is what I do. This is what I don't like. Just making sure that they really, really know exactly what you want and why you're there is so important. We had some more MS elements early on, but they've kind of fallen away as we learn more into the wholesome 50s DS couple thing. Yeah, exactly. Like you could originally start thinking you're going to be in one place and then end up somewhere else very different. So, yeah. Honestly, we barely even see our power exchange as a kink anymore. It's just our lives that makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people end up in that place. I think a lot of people start off with, like, very formal contracts, and this is exactly what we're gonna do. Step A, B, and C, 20 pages. You know, looks like it was typed up by a lawyer stuff, which is like, hey, that's a kink. That's the thing that people are into. But it doesn't have to just be that. A lot of people, I think, when they fall into a comfortable, sustainable rhythm with a partner, the power exchange does kind of, like, it's a part of your everyday life, and so it does feel kind of mundane, but it is still a power dynamic, and it does still, like, inform the way you interact and how fulfilled you are in the relationship, and that's what really matters, more so than, like, well, you only have 2 pages of rules and not 10, and so you're not a real DS couple. You don't really do DS. Like, that kind of expectation is just silly. Just plain silly. We're also working on her training me to not speak in a scene unless it's a safe word, having times when I can't think or other than to obey. No words needed for that. Ooh, I mean, yeah, behavior modification, definitely a big part of things. Anyways, I hope that gave you some ideas on helping your partner be more confident as a new dom, and then also building a strong relationship with those, like, boundary exercises, establishing what you want to do, that practice. I think all of that is a really good place to start. And if you do want to do something that's more, like, power focused, you can start with things like rules or whatever initially. I didn't really mention that because I feel like I say that in every video, is like, start slowly, start with one rule first and then build on it. I just feel like I'd be a broken record. Would you say that open relationships is more efficient than polygamy? So possible exploration of different terminology here. So polygamy is a typically misogynistic thing that happens, and it's also usually religious, where one man marries multiple women. And that is very different from polyamory. They are not in any way synonymous. They are completely separate. Polygamy is like I don't know, old school ultra conservative Mormons or like certain other cultures. Like it's not really like that is more based on like religious ideals and ideas about gender, whereas polyamory is more about like multiple, like having the capacity to love more than one person simultaneously and being able to have multiple full, fulfilling relationships simultaneously. I mean, I guess polyamory or open relationships, non-monogamy of any kind that's like, consensual, ethical, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, those are all much better than polygamy is, IMO. Not a fan. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this economy, good luck. Yeah, exactly. I mean, having to support all those wives. I've definitely been watching Sister Wives for the drama. Oh, no, it's a great drama. Like, polygamy, great for the drama. I mean, I have made this joke before that people say, oh, I'm into polyamory because I have the capacity to love more than one person, or because I don't want to restrict myself and the ability to explore. The real reason why people are polyamorous is because they're addicted to drama and they love relationship drama. All the breakups, all the scares and the everything is just so much more amplified when it's 5 people living together in one house as a polycule. It's much more dramatic that way. Hey, baby, what are you doing? You smiling girl? You're not by the camera. What? Just staring at me. Ooh, my last therapist was very anti-kink. It was difficult. Well, that sucks. I'm very sorry. Yeah, like, I feel like therapists either don't know anything about it at all or they, like, specialize in it. And it's very hard to find anything in between where people are just, like, okay with it but don't really know that much about it. Like, I think people that know the least tend to be the most against it, in my experience. Oh, we started out vanilla dating, but we are taking next steps in our relationship to being more serious in the BDSM community and started getting some new experiences, but I wanted to help her. Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, like everything I said in terms of really short scenes, maybe not playing in public initially, because I think sometimes for a new dom, it can be very vulnerable and like embarrassing to play in public for your first couple of scenes and like worrying if people are judging you, especially if they're like I think you're saying her, so if they're like a femme presenting person. Anyway, honestly, anyone that is perceived as being in any way a level of feminine is typically going to have more troubles dealing with people that want to like interject and be helpful in the middle of a scene and try to be like, actually, do you know this is the more efficient way to hold a flogger, even when you totally didn't ask anything at all. So you have to be careful about playing in public as like a newer dom or top, because if you have somebody come up that's a real asshole or judgmental or like trying to be nice, trying to be helpful when you didn't ask for it, that can just, rip the wind out of your sails and really, really damage your self-esteem, because like, why would you want to play in public if when you do it, some fucking 55-year-old guy you've never met waltzes up, with his slave on a leash behind him going like, hey, sweet cheeks, you want to know how to hold a flogger? Like, all right, buddy, like, slow down. So yeah, I think that's about like kind of the good place to start. But honestly, really, like, don't overthink it too much. I think is the real pathway. I think sometimes we obsess about doing everything the right way, like capital T, the right way. And that doesn't, like, that's not really possible. Like, it's very difficult to do everything totally perfectly. And so I think as long as you are taking those steps, that's more important than like taking the perfect steps. So I say this more for like her benefit maybe than yours. Like, if she's feeling paralyzed by her inability to like choose things, like, oh, I could do this or this, but I don't want to because, or I shouldn't because, like if they're just choosing to not do anything because, well, I don't want to play in public because this, or I don't want to play in private because that, I'm not ready for this yet. Like, just be a little bit brave for like a minute, and just like, or just 20 minutes, just be a little bit brave, and then you can get through it and get some experience. But I think sometimes people get too in their heads about it, and then they don't ever do anything, and then that sucks. Yep, very one true way vibes, absolutely. Yeah, very much like, hey, you definitely need my help because you look different than me, and so therefore you couldn't possibly be competent at anything. Like, it's a very judgmental approach, or like some people just assume that if you look under 30 and you look like you're a top, or you're doing toppy things, that you are just like begging for help. Like, no, actually I'm not really. I just am having fun with my partner here. Maybe you could give us some space, dude. But yeah. Planning on topping for a wax scene tomorrow with my girlfriend. Do you have any general advice for that type of scene? Oh, so much advice. I have so many opinions. I haven't filmed it yet, but I've been meaning to do an updated video about wax play, and it ended up being such a long video because I did so much research about it. My main advice is definitely be very cautious about what you're doing. Make sure you're using a body safe, made for wax play candle. Please do not be using a Yankee candle or a beeswax candle. Just, get something purpose made. If you don't already have it, it might be too late to order it. I have to put off the scene, but use a purpose made candle. Definitely have a plan in place for like, if something catches fire, what are you going to do? Have stuff on hand for first aid just in case you need it. Have a plan for cleaning up. Definitely have tarps, and like you can get liquid and stuff that helps remove candle wax, because even if you try to get to all of it, you're going to get some on your shoe and then track it on the carpet later and then rub it into the carpet. It's going to be a huge pain in the ass. So just have a plan in place for first aid and for removing the wax if you need to. Have something to remove the wax with. I think a lot of people forget that step, because you can, depending on what it's made from. It's pretty easy to like remove the wax in either like a sheet or flaking it off. But a lot of people also like removing it with like a butter knife or a wood knife or something, or like a stage prop knife. And that can be very fun to do. And make sure you pay attention to where the candle is at all times. Try not to have too many other distractions in terms of like really loud music or like just other things going on too much. Like, keep it really simple. Make sure you're staying focused on what's going on with the candle, especially if you're planning to use more than one at the same time. More flames and more problems. And also having like a mother candle, like a really big, like a hurricane candle you can use. That's really big and stable. You can use for like relighting the candle continually, can be good, but just make sure it's in a really stable spot, not going to be tipped over easily. And I think other than that, I'd maybe say, if she hasn't had the chance to shave yet, please tell her to. Because having to pull like little baby hairs out with wax on your arm or anything is like painful. So whether it be if you're going to do it on the stomach, the chest, the back, the butt, basically anywhere in your body, maybe except your face, your neck, which you really wouldn't really do wax play there, especially as a beginner. Anyways, you can do wax play on the face or on the neck, but it's a little bit more of an advanced skill set and you need a lot of control to be able to do it well. So make sure they have a chance to shave. And trying to think of anything else that's like really key. Have a barrier oil between the skin and the wax, especially if you want it to be a little bit easier to remove. And I guess be aware that if you're using dark colors, they can stain, like purple, red, black. Those can sometimes leave a little bit of a stain on the skin. So if you want to like, it's not really that big of a deal, but it can linger. So if they need to like look professional, don't get like, a purple or black splotchy stuff all over their lower arm. because then that could be a problem with their work. And I'm trying to think of anything else. I feel like that's probably a pretty good summary of stuff to start with. And then just like go slowly, right? Like don't, go slowly, start up from way up high, start lower level of intensity, and then work your way up to higher level of intensity. I went to a great wax play demo where they used a crock pot like thing to melt the wax instead of having flames. It was cool. They put the wax on with a paintbrush for part of it. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to do it, especially if you can pre-plan it and have like a big thing of wax for a longer scene. Doing a crock pot method that's totally flameless, that you can actually completely dial in the exact temperature of the wax itself, is very good to have, because a lot of waxes, you can kind of get an estimate of where they'll burn, but it's with coloring and things like that, it can be difficult to know exactly what temperature it's going to be at when it hits the skin. And so having a crock pot or like a wax warmer, like body waxing, like hair removal surfaces, they also make wax heaters for that. That can help keep your wax at like a good, stable, like safe temperature. And then you always know what temperature it is, and that's very useful. Yeah, exactly. Like it keeps the wax at consistent temperature the whole time. Whereas with like a candle, it can definitely make the wax have what's called like hot spots, or it can burn unevenly. It can get sooty, and like eventually the candle gets small enough to where you can't really hold it safely either. So really, like crock pots, I feel like are the good way to go if you want to do like a more intense scene. If you really like wax play, you want to do more with it. A crock pot is even a little, like they make little mini crock pots that are really good size for this too. Like the little like personal like. Is it like 4 cup or like 6 cup capacity crock pot? I think it's probably 6 or 8 cups actually. Those are a good place to go with. Yeah. I would not recommend getting like hair removal wax done before you do wax play. I mean, like shaving also kind of does this, but especially like hard wax, like traditional like hard wax or like strip waxing as opposed to like sugaring. That can really sensitize the surface of your skin because you're putting hot wax on it and then ripping it, and it doesn't just take off the hair or the hair follicle. It also tends to take off the very outer part of the skin. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. So don't wax beforehand, and like shaving can also like take off a little bit of that first layer of skin, but it's not nearly as sensitizing as like a hair wax removal is. So, and also typically after you get waxing done, you're not supposed to like be in a sauna or get sweaty or do like things that can make your body really hot for I think like 24 hours or 12 hours after a waxing session. So, also keep that in mind too. Usually I recommend shaving the day before you want to do the scene, or like the evening before, just so you have time for, the sensitivity to go down a little bit. And so you're not like putting wax over like raw skin, Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing an updated video about wax play. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be doing it. It's on the to-do list. It's just like I way overcomplicated the video, and I think what I need to do is I need to like save the current version of the script as it is and then go back through and then simplify it more, because it does not need to be that complicated at all. Yeah, definitely shave and wait at least 24 hours. Yeah, because you don't like, especially if you get little nicks or cuts in your skin that you don't know about, like you don't want to put hot wax over that. Because getting a staph infection is not a fun time. So you just want to like minimize your chance of like getting an infection or causing an injury you don't intend to get. And that's how you do it. I took the words out of my mouth. Well, I am glad we are on the same page. Okay, we have like about 25 minutes left. So just FYI, if you've not asked a question yet, please let me know. She doesn't shave, LOL, so maybe just wax the non-hairy parts. Yeah, so like the stomach or the chest might be a good option for that. Would she be open to trimming? Because, she doesn't want to remove, so if you don't want any hair to be removed, don't put wax over it. So like the back or the butt would be a good option, or the chest or the stomach, probably. Well, also you can have like stomach hair, so maybe not even like, maybe the chest and the back I'd probably stick to, because like the legs, the arms, and for some people on their backs too, I guess, those can all be pretty hairy. And again, like if it's just like tiny little vellus hairs, it doesn't really matter so much, but like actual like full on like darker hair, that can be not very fun to just suddenly have to yank out. Do we think it's, quote, polygamy when the male dom has multiple committed female subs? This is common. No, that's not polygamy. Polygamy is only when a man is married in a, like, it's a very specific thing. Like, polygamy is when you have, like, a religious marriage where the man is married to multiple women and the women are not allowed to see anyone else but him. That's pretty much what it is. I'm sure even that might be overly broad, but that's more or less what it is. That's like a pretty solid definition. I would say if you're a male dom with like multiple committed female submissives, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's like sexual, romantic, or both. I would say that's definitely like more of a version of an open relationship, but I don't think I'd call it polygamy, no. I'm sure some people call it that, because I'm sure some people call it that because they have like a fetish for it. Like they're like, I want to be a Mormon cult leader. I have a Mormon cult leader fetish because I'm recovering from like being what's the term? They're an apostate from the Mormon church. Like they reneged on the Mormon church, and so now they like to do blasphemy play with polygamy. Then I guess they might call it polygamy. But like externally as like an outside party, I wouldn't call it that. Because usually male doms aren't like having fake weddings. Well, no, actually there was that one guy in Australia who did that. He was a polygamist because he'd actually married them. He actually had wedding and like marriage ceremonies with all the different people that he was had a harem with that were all women. So that I might call polygamy because he kind of deserves it because he's kind of a dickhead, and definitely was trying to be like sort of cult leader vibes. I'm a head out, but hope you all have an amazing weekend. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. Have a good weekend. It's a busy weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend here in the old USA, so I'm sure lots of people are up to lots of fun things. Okay, trying to find next question here. Cuckolding may be a derogatory act, but why not let people talk about it? YouTube doesn't understand consent. They need a lesson in that. Yeah, no, I agree. YouTube definitely, they need a lesson in consent. And like, yeah, adults can see words that are bad sometimes. Adults are allowed to like see swear words and like interact with them. Yeah, YouTube's silly about that. Yeah, words are offensive sometimes. YouTube, get over it. That's why I think monogamous open relationships are the most efficient, because it doesn't screw with the dynamic while also keeping intimacy open. Best of both worlds. Okay, wait. A monogamous open relationship. I mean, there's some people who probably say it that way. I feel like even if the only thing you are, because like almost all the time in that context, intimacy does not mean emotional intimacy. That they only mean sexual intimacy. And when I say intimacy, I mean sexually, emotionally, romantically, mentally, all the different intimacies. Like I use it as a catch-all for like everything. I don't like using intimacy as being synonymous with just sex by itself. But I'm imagining if you're a monogamous open relationship and you just have like a hall pass type thing where like, or you only have, well, I mean, because if you were only having threesomes with the other person being there while you were doing the threesome, I guess technically that would maybe be a monogamous open relationship. But I think if you're having sex with other people, I think you can't say it's monogamous anymore. That's kind of like the definition of monogamy is being sexually exclusive. Even if not, like romantically exclusive also is kind of baked into that. But especially especially the sexually part. I really don't think it's the most efficient, though, because I don't think that ends up working for most people, especially the third parties in the relationship, like trying to make that work. I think it does screw the dynamic. I think as soon as you try sleeping with other people besides your partner, one or both of you is going to start having emotional feelings about it in a very intense way. Feelings of rejection or not being enough or jealousy or envy or possessiveness, or that it's wrong or that it's bad somehow. Like, yeah, you are definitely it's gonna screw the dynamic. Like, when you open up a relationship, that is a Pandora's box. Not just for, like, people think that you can make this container where the only thing about your relationship that's going to change is like, oh, we just also sleep with other people. Like, when you start seeing other people sexually, romantically together as a couple, you're going to see things about each other's behavior that might make you uncomfortable. You might be jealous about how they seem to be much more mindful and attentive towards the new partner. Like, it's very difficult for it to not, like, screw with the dynamic of the relationship. Because I think by its nature, if you have a third person there, even temporarily, occasionally, not every day, that still changes the dynamic because you have this other person that, like, shares in a big part of your relationship sometimes. So, yeah, I don't think it's really the best of both worlds. I think it's sort of like the hopeful ideal is that it will be easier and it'll be like monogamy +1, or it won't change anything about a relationship, but it'll, like, I would say I don't know anyone who has opened up their relationship and then it was the same afterwards as it was before. Even if they close the relationship, or it's just like sleeping around, or it's just doing threesomes or swinging, it always changes the relationship in some way. Hopefully for the positive, but definitely also for the negative sometimes. Polygamy is a crime. You only get to marry one person. That's why she said it's really specific. Yeah. It's like, it's against the law. It's called bigamy in the general sense. That's why it's like, that's what it is. An open relationship is an ongoing dynamic till stated otherwise, so you can't really be monogamous. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess you could say you're, like, technically monogamous if you only have a threesome once on a cruise ship as a couple and then, like, never again. But there's still a level of, like, not being monogamous in there. It's monogamish, maybe. I think that's maybe the word that people go towards, is it's monogamish. Because then, like, you are, like, because I think that communicates how it's not quite monogamy, but the monogamous dyad of that central couple is still, like, the main thing. It's not like an equilateral thing with 3 people. It's not like we're totally opening up the relationship and, like, it's still centering the focus on the monogamous couple that existed before opening up, and that's the ish part. So I like monogamish. I think that's the phrase that I like. Ooh, I'm a sub who has just started dating another sub. While he said he's open to switching, he prefers being a sub. I'm worried that it won't work because I'm not a dom. Any advice? So this is a really common question. I feel like it happens more with bottoms and bottoms dating, or subs and subs dating. But it also happens with tops and doms too, where you have either a mismatch in how much you want to be that thing with that person. Like, maybe you're both switches and you both like topping and bottoming, but you both lean towards being a bottom even though you technically do both. Or you're only a sub and he's a switch, but he mostly wants to be a sub. So I think it depends on a couple of things. Which is, one, how important is BDSM to you? Like, can you have a happy relationship and a dynamic and a sex life where you are mostly either being vanilla or you're only occasionally being dominated? So you have to think about that. You have to also think about, like, are you going to be monogamous? Are you going to be exclusive? Because, like, if you can see other people, that makes this a lot easier, because you don't have to be like, just because you're dating one sub doesn't mean that you can't have a dom somewhere else from somebody else, or that you can't go to play parties and have somebody else top you, or go to a high protocol dinner and like serve a different dom or something. Like you can definitely arrange it so that way you are in this dynamic as a couple, and like they're your romantic partners. Sorry, my mouth is just like really dry. Yeah. So okay, that's so much better. Yeah, you can have a dynamic where you are able to express both that submissive side and that well, your submissive side and your vanilla side, I guess, not your submissive and your dominant side. Because I'm not getting the sense that you're probably going to dominate him if you think you're just a sub. Which maybe you get into the relationship and you try stuff and you discover, oh, like I can top for this, I can dom for this occasionally. Like, that's like okay for me. I think the main thing is, and this really, honestly, I feel like a lot of the stuff about this probably ends up going back to like similar advice that they would give for somebody with like desire discrepancy with sex in a relationship, where like one partner has a really high sex drive and one partner has a really low sex drive. Like that is also like a common problem because like most people are not perfectly compatible in that direction. Like it's hard to find somebody who's your perfect match in all of the ways and also that way. So I would say just be very clear about where your boundaries are. To be very honest and check in with yourself if you don't think your needs are being met, if you think you're topping too much, if they think they're topping too much. You gotta be very honest and upfront about like, hey, I don't think that like my needs are being met here, or like how can we work towards making this more of a thing, or would you feel comfortable doing this, or how can we be more comfortable doing this. Just keep that dialogue really open, and I think that'll also really help a lot. But really, like how much this works like depends on how flexible you both are and how many other options you have outside of just the two of you. I would say, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but if you are going to be sexually, kinkily, romantically exclusive, and being a submissive is very important to you. It's a core part of who you are, how you relate to your sexuality, and your partner is primarily submissive. It's also very important to them sexually, but they don't ever really want to dom or top. I would say that's very difficult to make work without some kind of feeling of resentment, lost opportunity, wasted time, and you don't want to have that happen. So again, it just depends on the options that are on the table in front of you and what you are like. There's certain things I really think that you shouldn't compromise on. I think we're taught that compromise is like the be all end all of having healthy relationships. But when it comes to things that are really important to you about a relationship that mean you are happy or not in that relationship, I really think you shouldn't compromise on those. I think you should like stick to your guns on certain things. Like, yeah, if you need to be dominated to have a fun time in the bedroom, it's very important to who you are as a person romantically in order to feel that romantic connection. Yeah, that might not work for you. But if you're more like, yeah, being submissive is kind of fun, but I don't really need it all the time. Like, I'm happy having vanilla sex, or we can date other people, or I can see another dom who's not romantic, not sexual, right? Because you can have platonic friends that top you. You can have platonic friends that dom you. You can go see a pro dom. Like, there's options as well where you can go see other people for topping and doming when you want that outlet, but that are not going to be like dating partners or that people you have sex with or anything like that. If you're not comfortable with that, or you wouldn't want to have that, or your partner wouldn't want that. So it's definitely an uphill battle, but it is doable as long as, you're at the beginning of the relationship. This is the best time for being very clear about setting boundaries and expectations and what you both want out of the relationship. Like, again, I've talked about this already in the stream, but things like yes, no, maybe checklist, want, will, won't checklists, those are good tools to use to get a better sense of like what your needs, wants, and desires are. And like, is this a want? Do I need this? Will I be happy without it? And just evaluating all of that and then having like a simpler way of communicating that. Communication is key in any situation, and respecting what boundaries are set. Yes. And that especially goes for your partner setting the boundary of like, I'm okay with topping, but I can only do it twice a month. or every other time that we have a scene, or every other time we have sex, or whatever it is. You gotta be very careful about that, because I think it's very easy to be like, well, why don't you want to top me? This would feel so good. Please make me happy. And like, you gotta be very careful to not be guilt trippy. I'm submissive in my relationship, but I've been working on my confidence because I work with all men and I like female power music. Like, Ashinko is tapping my dominant side. Yes, that's such a good move. Yeah. Yep, you always got to be honest with yourself. People are dancing around the issue here. If you want to ask what, okay, wait, I don't know what's happening. Wait, that's not, okay. I'm just going to leave that alone because I don't know what can of worms I'm walking into with that one. We're just going to leave that right there as it is. Okay. Oh, okay, gosh. Okay, we have 10 minutes left somehow. All right, we're racing along here. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. Let's see, I would like to get to one, possibly even 2 questions. Let's see if that ends up happening. Oh, great. Quick question. Oh, hi. Also, welcome back, Johnny Prince Charlie. Glad to have you here. Quick question. How does the poly community treat getting back with your ex after starting a new relationship? And how can you have 2 primary partners starting a new relationship but may get back together? I feel like people don't care. Like, again, like I said before, like poly people love drama. So I feel like the main way that would be interpreted would be like, ooh, tea. And then they kind of gossip about it a little bit, but like no one's going to say anything to your face because people do that all the time. Every poly man that I know, like, stays in contact with all of their exes. I really don't think that they should. Because sometimes exes are exes for a reason. And, like, you shouldn't, like, be leaving those permanent doors open. I think it's harder to move on. But they do, right? And, like, sometimes they come back into town for a weekend, you have lots of sex, you hook up, you go on a couple dates, and you go, oh, I can do this again, and then you end up getting back with your ex. So, like, it definitely happens. I don't think it's necessarily super common. I think what's more common is people move from, like, living together, primary partnership, to, like, separating and like not living together but staying partners, or going from partners to friendship. And like sometimes it's temporary. Like I know people where they've like temporarily stopped seeing each other like sexually and romantically because they're going to grad school, they're getting a PhD, they're traveling to Europe, they're having a baby, like they're doing like major life stuff where they're not able to maintain that relationship as much. They kind of like put it on the back burner with the intention of going back to it. So I guess really like people don't mind that much about going back to an ex. I think my knee-jerk response is like, if you have 2 primary relationships, you don't have a primary relationship. Like, I think it sort of depends on like how you construe what it means to have a primary relationship. I mean, trying to think of what I've read in the literature in polyamory books about this. My inclination is that if you have 2 primary partners that are equal to each other, then you don't really have a primary partner. You have like committed partnerships or nesting partnerships if you live with them. I think if you're trying to use hierarchical language, I don't think most people tend to have, but also I think I do know people that have more than one primary relationship and like call it that, but almost everyone I know doesn't use those labels. Like they don't use secondary or primary labels to begin with. They talk about like a nesting partner or co-parenting partner or committed partner or long-term relationship or just partner, just point blank. They don't really use secondary primary language to start with. But I mean, really, like, what's the meaning behind, like, can I have 2 primary relationships? Like, can you have 2 relationships where you are deeply committed, respecting each person's complete boundaries, giving them time and attention in a way that's
John
totally
Darwin
fulfilling?
donated $10.
Oh,
Just
thank
because.
you, John. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you've been enjoying the stream, and thank you for the donation. So yeah, I think you just got to be really clear about how much energy and time you have to spend each person. I think where you can trip up on this is if you're trying to be like, what's that Bible story where like he cuts the baby in half? Like, don't do that. Like, it's not about an equal sum thing where like, well, but you spent 2.5 hours watching this movie with her, and so now you have to spend 2.5 hours with me doing this other thing. Like, if you get really tied down into like keeping track of every single minute, every single person, and no, everyone's getting the exact equal amount of time, days spent doing sleepovers, number of times having sex per week. Like, if you're micromanaging on that level, trying to make sure both people are primary, that's not going to work. Because we're all individuals. We all have different wants and needs. And some people are going to be, frankly, needier than others. And that's not bad. That's not a judgment. That's just reality. And people are allowed to be needy. You are allowed to want things and have, like, hey, this one partner I have is okay texting twice a week and then hooking up a couple times a month. And this other partner wants to talk every single day in detail, send pictures, FaceTime good morning and good night. Both people are totally valid. Yeah. I think that's one of the bigger issues with hierarchical polyamory. A lot of poly people aren't a fan of it from what I've seen. Yeah, like it's so hard to like actually do that in reality. Because either somebody ends up like becoming the secondary partner if you are thinking hierarchically, or you don't really have a hierarchy because everyone's here, right? Like, and like if everyone's here, then you don't really have like, if it's all just if it's all vertically integrated or horizontally integrated or whatever, like then you don't like it's you don't have a hierarchy, and so therefore nobody's the primary because nobody's a secondary, nobody's a tertiary. You're not approaching it with that mentality. But it is really what you make of it, honestly. Okay, I'm going to try really quickly to get to one more question and then some bandit time before we wrap up. Oh, this stream was wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know YouTube is having some technical difficulties on the app side of things and people staying connected, but we are doing our best. Okay, good question to end on here. How appropriate is it to ask the local leader about the accessibility of the dungeon? I use crutches to walk and get tired standing, so I want to make sure there aren't many stairs / no seating. Okay, so it's like, you're not like, I've been to the dungeon, it's not accessible, I need to fix this specific thing. It's, I'm worried about this thing maybe not being accessible before I go. In either case, if it is a dungeon that is worth your fucking time at all, they will be more than happy to answer any question that you have. I don't know if they have a website or if they have a FatLife account. You can DM them, email them, fucking carry your pigeon, I don't know. Talk to them about it in person at a munch, maybe even if they go to munches regularly. That's maybe what I would do. You can just say, hey, so-and-so, my name is blah, blah, blah. I've been looking at going to your event. I'm super curious about it. I would love to know more. And something I really want to know more about is the accessibility of the space. You don't have to disclose what your thing is if you don't want to, but giving them more information might help them answer your question. But you can just say, for example, do you have any stairs in this space? Is it ADA compliant or ADA accessible? Are there other people who attend this event that use mobility aids or wheelchairs or something? Or maybe I might also ask, trying to think of maybe what else I'd want to ask in that, just to make sure everything in the bases were covered. But I would just ask to clarify, are there any steps or stairs in the event space? Is there anything else I need to be aware of, in terms of mobility? And maybe ask about seating stuff, right? Do they have chairs? Do they have sofas? What is the space like in terms of if you need to sit or get tired or not be on crutches, can you do that easily? And again, any dungeon that is worth your time, it will be no problem at all to answer that. All the dungeons that I've gone to, for the most part, they typically have some kind of little blurb in their thing about we are in an old building, so we're not ADA compliant, but we have a ramp, or This is what you need to know about our fragrance policy. This is what you need to know about, like, their stairs. Like, typically where I've gone to, it's very transparent in terms of, like, elevators, stairs, steps, tripping hazards, the age of the building, if it's wide enough for a wheelchair, because these kinds of questions are fairly common because a lot of people in the kink scene have disabilities, and it's very common to see people with like service animals or wheelchairs, mobility aids, all kinds of stuff. So you're definitely not alone. Good luck with getting that question answered, and hopefully they are not dicks about it, but can't know for sure until it happens. Oh, it was Solomon, right. It's been a while since I went to Bible study. Okay. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a live stream? I mean, 200. How do you feel? Okay, this is gonna be a bonus question just because I like this. How do you feel about the ethics of a poly person trying to date a clearly mono person? So I know people that do this, and I just don't think it works. So on a practical level, I don't really think this works. Now, if you're opening up an existing relationship, you're married, you have kids, you've been together for 20 years.
DJ Base Hawk 3726 donated $15. Not a question and is probably a little late now, but I just wanted to say thank you very much, Evie, for your video about interacting with a therapist. I was able to open up to mine yesterday about being interested in kink, and she was...
And it says she was very nice about it. I don't know why it cut off. Yeah, that's great. I am so glad that worked for you. I'm so happy. And yeah, like some therapists are not okay with it, and some totally are. And they're just like, okay, whatever. How does that impact you emotionally? What do you want to unpack about that? And they're very helpful. So great. Some people do. Yeah, definitely. I've seen people have service animals at dungeons. Yeah. Okay, so getting back into the ethics of a poly person trying to date a mono person. One, I don't really think that works if you are already married and then opening up a relationship. I think just because of the longevity of the relationship and how much trust there is, and because it was originally monogamous to begin with, I think that can work better. But saying you're poly, trying to date a mono person, almost all the time, the mono person ends up being poly, or they end up being very uncomfortable with it. And they're like, why don't you want to see me more? Why do you have to see other people? Why do you have to have sex with anyone else except for me? Why am I not good enough? Like, it just ends up being kind of a shitstorm. I would say it can be ethical to attempt to do it, even if it may result in failure, because adults can make their own decisions. They are allowed to do things that are bad ideas. And also, again, the person can end up being poly. They just need to have that discovery process. As long as they know the person is poly, they talk about what that means specifically to make sure there's no misunderstandings about, like, I didn't realize you were gonna have somebody else sleep in your bed overnight. I didn't realize you were gonna, not use condoms. I didn't realize you were gonna, whatever it is. So just make sure there's no assumptions happening. Just be very open. Hey, I'm poly. I do poly dating. I'm gonna see other people besides you, but I also want to see you too. Are you okay with that? Where it becomes unethical for me is when people are polyamorous and they're trying to date monogamous people and they don't disclose that they're poly. And the way people do this is very sneaky. It's not typically that they say, oh, I'm monogamous, I'm looking for monogamous dating. They just don't mention they're poly, because most people are monogamous. And so most people are assuming that you are also monogamous. And so they try to ride in on this little, like, oh, I'm just going to drip feed it to them. I'm not going to bring it up that I'm poly. And as long as they like me, I don't really have to say anything. Like, I think before even going on the first date, somebody should know that you're poly. I know people that will wait until the date to have that conversation. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that gives polyamorous people a really bad name. I think that is a make or break thing for a lot of people, which if you are somebody that is like deeply poly, that can be hard to understand. Like, why somebody would care that much enough to like be like, nope, can't handle it. But some people just really don't want that, and they should be able to opt out of that if that's like a hard limit no for them, without having to put on their dating profile, no polyamorous people, big capital letters, do not interact. Like, you know, because that just leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. So I think as long as you are being open and honest, and they know what you're doing, if you have other partners, your intention with dating, using like the STI testing, birth control, whatever, like as long as everybody knows what's going on, that's what's important. It's unethical if you don't disclose it and don't talk about it, and then like trick somebody into like already really liking you and then springing it on them that you're really poly. Now, I'm assuming that under the context of you're poly and have other partners already. You could be poly and not have other partners, and then if you're just dating them as a single person and you're not seeing anybody else yet, I think that can maybe wait for a couple of dates in, or like maybe 1 or 2 dates in, to have a conversation about like, yes, I'm currently dating you, or I'd like to do that, I'm happy with that, but also I am polyamorous, or I prefer to have a polyamorous relationship, so I would like to date other people in the future. So like, if you have other partners, for sure talk about that first. But if you don't currently have anybody else that you're dating, then I think it's a little bit more okay to maybe wait until the date itself to bring that up. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because we don't have very much time left. They're relaxing, friendly, and good. Either join in or rest too, or do some work if you want. I'm glad people say so. Okay, well, we're gonna end with our moment of Zen, because why not? Our moment of Bendita Zen. Hi, Bendita. Oh, we're fully sleeping. We're fully sleepy, baby. Hi. Can we be awake for a moment of Zen? Can we be awake for a moment of Zen? Can we just give everyone some nice thoughts to head into the weekend? You have a message you want to tell anyone about? She says that you are loved, and that you are a worthy, good person, and that you deserve all the love, all the kindness, all the happy things. And she wishes you a relaxing, joyful weekend filled with naps and good food and lots of water, and maybe, if you're also a dog, chasing some squirrels in the yard. Such a good girl. Such a good girl. Yeah, you go, baby. Go, baby. It's always like 2 a.m. here when I'm watching. Listen, late night time. Oh, we immediately went back down. We're like, it is sleepy mode time, mama. All right, I think that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being here on this Friday and spending a little bit of it with me. We do these streams every Friday at 6 o'clock Pacific time. That is 9 o'clock on the East Coast. We do typically stream for about 2 hours. If you want to make sure to see these, you go ahead, subscribe, turn on that bell, and then you'll get notified when I go live. And yeah, just thank you again so much for watching and listening. Have a great night, a great weekend. Stay safe. And hopefully I will see you all again soon. Bye. And her tail's wagging again. I don't know if you guys can see it. Good little tail going. Little tail going. Good girl. All right.